Hey guys, I am here in live action for a change, and if you're wondering about the background, this is a little video that will be promoting the book I have coming out. It is Joanna and the 12 Crowns, and as you can see, the background here is a representation of the cover designed by the great Harley Cubberley. And to summarize, it is a retelling of the 12 Dancing Princesses fairy tale with a bit of a, sword and sorcery twist to it. So I describe it as if Guillermo del Toro was making Once Upon a Time. And what I wanted to do here was share my personal dream cast for an adaptation, which, and of course, in my head, it's the classic author dream, like someone instantly sees it and it gets adapted within a couple of years, which probably won't happen, but Okay, and so to give a rough summary of the plot, okay, here's the back cover, kind of giving you the blurb of what's going on, right? First of all, for our main character, Joanna, Joanna is kind of a composite of two different characters from the fairy tale, because in the original, there's a soldier who's just come back from the war, and he's, the latest to be tasked with investigating what's happening with these 12 princesses who are disappearing from their room every night. Okay, so that soldier has been split into three characters for this, and Joanna is one of them. She is a dressmaker's assistant who, lives in the town, kind of in the shadow of this palace where the royal family are never seen, and there's a bunch of princesses visiting from other kingdoms on some sort of, you know, scholarship program, something anyway. And so one day, Joanna is mending a dress that's been delivered from the palace from one of these foreign princesses, and she finds a note in the dress that just says, "Help me." So Joanna then takes it upon herself to go undercover and disguise herself as a princess to get into the palace to find out what's happening, because it's key that there's 12 princesses in this version because, okay, you have the six king's daughters, and there's an additional five who are already at the palace. And the one who sent the note is convinced that they need 12 because they need one born in each month of the year. So Joanna disguises herself as the last princess to kind of, get herself in there and find out what's going on. Okay. I'm actually, I mapped this out like about 10 years ago. And it was only recently I rewatched the direct-to-video Cinderella sequel, A Twist in Time, and I realized like how much subconsciously that Cinderella's characterization in that informed Joanna in this, where she's not, necessarily a warrior or a tomboy or not like other girls. She's more of someone who's just like very good at thinking on her feet and will kind of do whatever needs to be done to kind of help someone and save the day. And she's very proactive, but she still has, that princess side to her as well, where she didn't necessarily fit in with the other girls in the town. She's a bit like Belle in that sense as well. And so kind of this is a chance for her to kind of experience girl world for the first time, right? And so my number one pick to play Joanna in a film is the great Sadie Sink.
Would you ever kiss the weird girl?
I've been a fan of for years. It was actually Fear Street I saw her in first before Stranger Things. And well, first of all, Joanna is a redhead, like an actual redhead. So I want an actual redhead to play her in the film. Like that's not negotiable. I don't want, a blonde or a brunette with dyed hair or like in a troll doll wig like that. Sadie Sink is, we know she has like this kind of, tough, kick-ass, like take no-ish persona, right? But she also has that princess side to her as well that you definitely saw in Fear Street and the All Too Well music video as well. Like she's just amazing. Like she would do so great, and I would love to see her play Joanna, right? Okay, the next character is Joanna's brother Alex, who he's another composite of the soldier from the fairy tale, where Alex actually is a soldier, who's come back from the war and is like got a bit of shell shock and is trying to put his life back together. And, his relationship with Joanna is strained because of this, because she can't really understand what he went through. And so while Joanna goes undercover as the 12th princess, He's actually he stays on the outside to try and investigate because, as in the fairy tale, there's also reports of six missing princes. So he's trying to figure out like, does this have anything to do with what's going on in the castle? So, and being bluntly honest, Alex is my self-insert. That's my favorite name of all time, and washed up soldier who, gets a second chance and, maybe gets a few heroics to do in the, well, third act of the film, if it was a film. That's definitely something I would love to play. It's just a role that will be really fun for me. And hey, I wouldn't mind, playing Sadie Sink's brother, and I actually am like sort of part ginger, if my beard grows pretty long, it does turn ginger. So, that's still preserving the authentic redhead casting. Right, cool. And then the next character is Kurt, who is Alex's best friend and Joanna's sort of childhood friend as well, where the three of them were orphaned like from a young age. Like Kurt's parents died first, and so Joanna and Alex's parents took him in, and him and Alex were basically brothers. And then Joanna and Alex's parents died, and they were all raised together. And Kurt is also, him and Joanna are starting to develop feelings for each other, but they're not really, able to act on them just yet. And so Kurt disguises himself as Joanna's cousin when she goes undercover. They pretend to be, a pair of royals. Joanna's alias is Cordelia, and Kurt's alias is Malcolm. And so they pretend to be cousins. And of course, there's a little bit of, tension there where, the feelings start developing, but they have to, pretend to be cousins. So, and Kurt is again the third composite of the soldier, specifically the part, accepting wine from one of the princesses and getting drugged one night. So that's what happens to him. And my main choice for this is another actor I know. This is Greg Young, who is a sort of, Irish gentleman. He would do a lovely job, and I think him and Sadie Sink would have some really good energy together. And he mainly has a beard here, like Kurt has one at the start, and then he has to get a little makeover to look more prince-like. So here's Greg without his beard. So
Easy wage, so I thought.
And then before we get into the princesses, we have Mrs. Taylor, who is an expanded version of. In the fairy tale, there's this mysterious old woman who, comes out of nowhere and gives the soldier an invisibility cloak and tells him, don't take anything the princesses give you, and she has all this knowledge. So she's expanded into a main character here where she's the dressmaker and she took Joanna, Alex, and Kurt in after all their parents died, and she raised them. And she is also Liana came up with this idea, and so she has a lot of magic items in her shop, and it's a joke among them that they never know, is she actually a witch or does she just, know a lot of stuff? And she intentionally keeps them guessing, just to troll them or, realizing the power in that. And she's very much, a return to we've lost, the crone archetype from a lot of fiction, the sort of wise older woman who just, tells it like it is and, just lays down some firm, true-hearted wisdom. And that's, I would like to see that come back. And the first choice for me is Julie Walters, who.
Harry, how wonderful to see you, dear. Bed's empty, no note, car gone.
I mean, I don't need to explain anything, do I? I mean, Julie Walters is just amazing. She would do so good. There's a very early part where she sees Alex and Kurt coming home from the tavern, but basically like a modern pub where she just throws a bucket of water on them and just like, you are not coming into my shop looking like that. Or smelling like that rather, but yeah. And then moving into the princesses, okay, we have the five princesses from foreign nations, and this is a fairy tale, so these aren't based on, these aren't meant to be real kingdoms, they're inspired by, real cultures and nations, but again, with a fairy tale, it's you never know when it's taking place or where, like they all happen, somewhere like some time ago, and so it's just like a little loose inspiration. Again, like Once Upon a Time, where it's like It's clearly a fairy tale world with inspirations from real life. Okay, and the first is Princess Sibel. Wonder who she's named after.
My name is Sibel.
Sibel.
She's the one who sends the note saying, "Help me," where, she's the latest person there, and she can sense that something is going on, and she's not entirely sure what, and she thinks her memories may have been removed, and she's not able to fully speak about it. So that's why Joanna has to go undercover, and they have to find it out together. And Sibel passes her off as like, "Oh, this is my friend Cordelia from far away," and Sibel's from a Greek-inspired kingdom. And she's also the sort of, blonde ingenue, sweet, must protect at all costs. Like one of her early, in an early draft, her name was going to be Violet, like shrinking Violet, but it's a bit too on the nose. And me and trying to shoehorn a Spartacus reference in there. There will be many more. Okay. Sibel is also kind of very much like Helen from I Know What You Did Last Summer, which, should have been the final girl, but that's a tangent for another day. And my choice for her is another friend of mine. This is Sarah Elizabeth Purdon, who I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And you can find her on TikTok at IRL Ingenue. And she actually played Sibel in this recreation of a Spartacus scene with me last year. Would that it had made difference?
You've made all in the world.
Hear how good that accent is?
God's favour him and bless us as well.
She's actually American. Like, she is so talented and so intelligent as well. And she would just, she's the type of actress who you would give her a scene and she would just come up with all these different interpretations and ways to play it that you wouldn't even think of, And so she would just really bring this role to life. And she's also a lovely girl. And, so the role is definitely, she gets dibs on this role. Cool. And then moving into the other princesses, we have Princess Aaliyah, who is, as the name would suggest, is from a very kind of Middle Eastern inspired kingdom. Actually, she was inspired by a pro wrestler. This is Noof Al-Aribi. She was in the WWE for years as Aaliyah. That was her ring name, and that's who she's named after. Yeah, Aaliyah is very much she's the oldest, and she's only 29, but we have a joke that that's considered old in princess years. And so she's big sister to everyone, and very glamorous. And I wanted to go against the obvious, so she's the action girl. She's the champion fencer. She loves horse riding, and it was funny. I actually wrote this first, and then I found out Noof Al-Aribi actually also is a horse rider. So maybe I'm psychic. I don't know. And honestly, because that character is so, based in my head around her, I would honestly like to see her play it in an adaptation. A lot of wrestlers do turn out to be really good actors, and she also, before she was in wrestling, she did a circus training, so spoiler, there will be a lot of stunts, especially in the third act, so that would definitely help. And of course, look at her. She is definitely a princess, she would do great.
Thank you. Thank you.
And then we have one of my favorite characters, who is Princess Emani, who is from an East African inspired kingdom, strong Zambian influence. And she was inspired by another wrestler, Naomi, who is one of my favorites. Like, I've been a fan ever since she debuted on NXT. And Emani is the sort of, just such a charismatic person who just captivates an entire room just by being so. She's not like an attention seeker. She's just so kind and sweet, and just a really good person who just people flock around. She can just captivate an entire room. And she's also dreams of having adventures, and she's fascinated by myths and legends. And I actually knew straight away that she's too strong a character to just not do anything with. And so I already am working on a second book where she would be the main character, and having adventures in her kingdom. And I'm already really having a lot of fun writing it, so hopefully you'll have fun reading it too. In terms of actresses to play this, I've had several choices, but there was one who I wrote with her in mind, and that is Precious Mustafa, who was amazing as Aisha in Fate the Winx Saga, which I liked more than a lot of other people, and she would do fantastic, and hey, she finally would get to play a princess here.
And I'd go with the new Speedo.
And also, Emani has a little sister called Zuri and a father called King Omari. And they would only have like cameos at the end of the hypothetical film, but they would be major characters in the second book slash film. And so for Zuri, I would have this is my friend Lauren Young, who lovely actress and also one of the most intelligent people I know, like, and is also working on a script that, once it's out, like you're gonna look back on this and go, oh, that's what he was talking about. Like it's gonna be something big. It's gonna be great. And she would be fantastic. And with the father, King Omari, I mean, badass African king, Spartacus fan, we all know who I'm gonna suggest.
The sentiment is well received.
Peter Mensa would just, I'm writing this character with him in mind. And honestly, it's kind of a dream where, if this was ever adapted, I would love for him to just read it and go, this is the role I've been waiting my entire career for. So, okay. And then next princess is Princess Anna, who is a mixed race princess. And she lives in a kingdom that's very much inspired by Tang Dynasty China. But she also has a father who is from a sort of Maori-inspired nation, right? And so this character was very written based on this specific actress, and that is Courtney Eaton, who played Lottie in Yellow Jackets, who is my favorite character, and she is just such an amazing actress. Like, she deserves so many good roles.
And let the darkness set us free.
Anna in this is she's the artist and kind of the lover of fashion. It's the Tang Dynasty, obviously, that influences like so many amazing costumes. Like if this was adapted to film, like her wardrobe would just be, spectacular. And I had Curse of the Golden Flower in mind while I was writing it. And Anna is also very sort of uh, she's very kind of Aro coded, or Ace coded, where she's kind of talking about, oh, I don't think I'll fall in love, I don't understand why people do this, that was a really kind of fun touch that came to me. So the last of the guest princesses, we have Eileen, who is named after my friend who she of the that dresses fashion crimes in the live action princesses video. And Eileen is the goth princess who she's just so fun, where she's someone who just does not care and will tell it like it is. And she also has this fun backstory of she has a beautiful soprano singing voice, and a princess wouldn't be allowed to sing on the stage where she comes from. So she ran away from home and became an opera singer under a different name, and her kingdom's very kind of, a strong Colombian influence. And so if we're talking, someone with Colombian heritage with a beautiful soprano voice.
Only you, you're the only thing I'll see.
Rachel Zegler. That's my first choice, and although kind of based more around her character in the Hunger Games prequel rather than say Snow White or Maria from West Side Story.
Come on, y'all, I gave up drinking when I was 12.
Maybe I'll cast Cynthia Erivo in something just to make Jezebel really furious. This was a fun challenge when I first wrote this story like 10 years ago, where I noticed that most adaptations tended to knock the sisters down to 6 because 12 is very hard to manage, and I was not secure enough in my masculinity to watch the Barbie version, so this was, in a sense, a challenge for me to see if I could write 12 main characters and flesh them all out. Okay, and so now we have 6 more. These are 6 sisters, like these are the king's daughters, and these are our antagonists. It's not really a spoiler to say they're the villains because, straight away from the first chapter that they are, they're possibly only half human. I'm not going to reveal exactly what they are, but you already know they're supernatural in some way from the first chapter. And our main villain is Princess Jazelle, she's very, again, the Spartacus parallels increase as she's very much like Lucretia, very ambitious, is like kind of willing to do whatever she can to get what she wants.
Do you understand?
And she was just a really fun character to write for, and I suppose a little bit of Cersei from Game of Thrones, but with less spite towards the world. And she also has powers over rock, stone, and gems. And this is how the secret passage gets opened in in this version where she uses her powers to manipulate the stone floor to basically turn itself into a passageway for them to walk through. And my first choice to play Jazelle would be Poppy Drayton. She was in the Shannara Chronicles, but she was really incredible in this infamous Little Mermaid movie from 2018 that a lot of people assumed was going to be Disney's version, but it is not a great movie, but it does so much heavy lifting in it, and I think she would play a really good villain, because Jazelle, you have to like her and also kind of not trust her, and I think she could pull that off.
But that time has passed.
And then we have Juliana, who is the next oldest sister. And as soon as I gave her this name, I was like, Juliana is not an evil name. So Juliana is the sister who is the most conflicted. She isn't 100% on board with what they're doing and kind of, follows orders and, does what Jazelle says. But, deep down, she's just like, maybe this isn't right, and she also has powers over water. So when the princesses are going to the ball on the boats, she controls the river to just move the boats through the gateway. And my choice for Juliana is this wonderful Irish actress called Rebecca Rose Flynn, who I've worked with loads of times. And well, first of all, definitely a princess and just so professional and, just a delight to work with. And the range is incredible.
You should be here. What would your dad do without you?
My florist is racist. I mean, I don't have a florist, but if I had a florist, she would definitely be racist.
I don't want to sound like I'm overhyping her, but seriously, like I've seen her play so many different roles and switch between them like that. Like she would do amazing, right? And then we have the twins who, we got to have a set of evil twins, that's just so fun. Like if the Delbert's daughters from The Shining grew up, even though they're not actually twins in that, but yeah. So we have Rean and Tamora, who, both named after evil ladies in Shakespeare plays. And Rean is the more bloodthirsty of the twins. She has a fondness for torture, that's all I'll say. And then Tamora is a lot more cunning, and Rean has powers over metal. Like one of the first scenes is a prince trying to escape from being locked up, and she basically manipulates the keys in his hand to just subdue him. It's really cool. And Tamora then has powers over wood, and that extends to, tree branches, which she can, elongate and turn into spikes to like get someone in the leg, which may or may not happen at some point in the story. And even though twins aren't like 100% identical in real life, here I would prefer one actress playing both parts because it is a thing where Joanna notices how identical they are, and that's a clue to her that something supernatural is going on. And so I go for another Yellow Jackets alumnus in Sophie Nélisse, who is just, she plays the most evil character in that show, and she is so good. She is just, you love to hate her. And, if anyone who hates Shauna as much as I do, it would be very satisfying seeing her get, two sets of comeuppances here, because I had a lot of fun writing, Rean and Tamora getting what's coming to them.
Natalie will prepare the feast.
And then we have the second last sister, who is Princess Judith, and she is a silent character. She basically carves up the room as soon as she walks in, just like with a look. We've all met those people before, like very kind of, steely and, imposing, and she doesn't need to say anything, and she's very stealthy. Like you don't know where she's going to show up, you always feel like her eye's on you. And so as she's mostly a silent character, I'm actually suggesting another one of my friends. This is Evie Guttridge, who a great Yorkshire actress and does like these great comedy sketches.
If you were with some other form, there was no one like me in it, what would you do? You'd just be like here, 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 and you'd be miserable? Maybe think about that.
I've noticed comedy actors always make the best villains. So I would love to see her just, own this. And she played Amy in Little Women once as well, and Amy can kind of be a villain depending on how you view the story. So, and then the youngest sister, who I set out to write a female Joffrey, and this is Princess Tannis, who, I wrote her to be, you love to hate her. She is an absolute little shit, and just has nothing redeeming whatsoever about her, and you just love her for it. And my choice for her is Calxiyn, who runs this wonderful channel called Calxiyn Cares Too Much, which I say is false advertising. We should all care as much as her.
But it is to my understanding that boys used to go see princess movies and they weren't little dipshits about it, so I don't know what happened.
And she says she's often typecast as, ingenues and princesses and sweet good girls, and she rarely gets the chance to play villains, so if this goes ahead, she would make a fantastic villain, she would be a great Tannis. And obviously, with a film adaptation and expanded perspectives, they get a little more than they get in the book, And I did also promise like a number of princes, and so we have the 6 kidnapped princes, and they don't have the biggest roles in the story, but I do have ideas in mind for, future books where each of them would get something, And so first of all, we have Prince Robert, who the prologue is from his perspective when he's trying to escape from, where they kept him. And he's very much, a classical, tall, dark, and handsome prince who's a gentleman and, kind of got a bit of a, old school swashbuckling edge. And for him, even though his name is Robert, he is not my self-insert. And I actually based his appearance on FC Marrow, who's also published his book Wicker Hill, which, definitely go out and buy it if you like Lovecraftian stuff. Hopefully I'm saying that right. And my actor for Prince Robert is Craig Farnan, who I worked with on a film back in 2021, so that's 4 years ago now. I do not like how fast time is flying. But yeah, he is, again, so professional and, just an absolute wonderful actor, and, he would do great.
Away from the fucking window!
And then next we have Prince Johann, who he would have a much bigger role in the second book / film based around Emani. And I've already had a lot of fun, expanding that role where he's descended from pirates and is just like a very kind of dashing adventurer sort. And my main choice for this would be David Alvarez, and he's actually helped inspire a lot more of Johann's characterization in the second book. I made him a great singer as well, because
If you can fight in America,
if he would be willing to take a small part in a hypothetical first adaptation, he would get a much bigger role in the second, so hopefully. And then we have Prince Darius, who is also would have an expanded role in the second book. A bit of a roguish type from an island kingdom where he never really wanted to be a prince, but he'd be kind of like happier, swinging in and saving the day and being a hero. And he's just like a very cool guy. And I would love for my friend Jason Darling Lynch to play him because he's a great Nottingham actor, and he is just so cool, and he would be an excellent prince.
Did you get it?
And then we have Prince Cedric, who is named after the actor I would love to play him, my pal Cedric Gagel, who, I also named as my fan cast for live-action Disney's Tarzan. And again, not a big role in this, but, I do have visions in mind for a sort of gender-swapped Beauty and the Beast retelling with him as I don't know. Cedric's a very sort of classical prince, kind of a lot more like, Snow White's prince in the original movie. Cedric would just do amazing, I'm going to have a lot of fun when I get around to writing that one. And then we have Prince Cody, who, again, not the biggest role, but I have an idea for a Rapunzel retelling where he would be the prince in that. And I still haven't, fully worked out the story for that yet, but it's going to be a lot of fun when I finally get around to it. This role would be played by a great actor I know in passing called Joseph Kyler, who, if you've seen him in action, he is fantastic, Yeah! And then last but not least, we have Prince Brandon, who is the baby of the bunch, the absolute youngest. And again, not a big role in this book, but, I do have ideas for a very buck wild installment later on down the line focusing on him. So yeah, that will be a lot of fun when it finally gets done. And so my choice for him is this great British actor called Peter Tilley. He mainly does horror films, and but he definitely has the range to play a prince. And if you want to, there's a picture of him without his glasses if you want to picture him in a fairy tale role. But yeah, he would do fantastic, and superficially I would love to work with him because he's great.
Every single day, I think about what I did to your partner.
And that just about wraps up all the main characters, except there's one There's one evil prince, it's kind of a spoiler where he is, but he's called Prince Conrad, and this is my friend Luke Anthony Jr., who I basically told him is like, okay, I need a supernaturally beautiful man, and so basically I used you as the visual model. So even though it's not the biggest role, if the film came around, there aren't that many supernaturally good-looking people in existence, so...
How much do you want?
And so that is my dream cast for an adaptation of Joanna and the 12 Crowns. Hope you enjoyed listening to me ramble, and you can probably guess why I don't do freestyle videos, because I cannot string a sentence together that well, but I'm a better writer, and hopefully the book will be out very, very soon, and you can all hopefully enjoy it, or, tell me how awful you think it is, so I'm looking forward to both. So thank you for joining me for this video, and be well.